everybody, my name is Nazmirek Mayaba. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Guys, today I have a very special guest. Before I introduce her, let me just say this. I have admired you from afar. I purposely did not reach out to you because I know I'm weird, and I don't know how to react, particularly with people like I really admire and really fond of. Yeah, man. It's similar to like Facebook page. I'll meet someone in person and I'll go really overboard. And I'm like, okay, that was too much. Okay. So, but then recently I was like, you know what? I don't care whether she thinks I'm weird, but we are best friends in my head. Okay? We are going to be friends. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Saidy Brown. Yay!
Hi, everybody!
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for making it today. I really appreciate it. Let me tell you when I first met you, but you don't even know.
Yeah.
So when I was obviously thinking about, telling my story, I did a lot of research.
Yeah.
Seeing like what is out there, how are people sharing their stories, who are like similar HIV, advocates in the country, and what are their stories. And I came across yours, right? And I think it was back in 2017, 2018. And then the first interview that I saw was the one you did with ETV.
Yes.
I can't remember. And it was titled, I still remember, HIV Victor.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And I was so blown away. I started following you, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to follow her from afar. I stalked you on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, like everywhere. But then it was only like a few years later that I reached out.
Yes.
But thank you, like from the bottom of my heart, like I've never said this to you in like ever, but I just want to take this opportunity to say, like, you inspired me with my own story. Yeah, man. And seeing you so confidently talking about your story, which we're going to get to now, I was like, I'm so blown away. She's so young, yet she's so courageous, so strong. She resembles strength. And that's what I aspire to. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now I'm so shy.
Listen, okay, before we get into anything, for someone that does not know who Saidy is, let's start from the beginning. Tell me about where you grew up, where you were born. How was your childhood?
So I had a normal childhood.
Yeah.
I had a happy childhood. I was a happy child. I was the baby of the family. I was the last born. So
Okay.
I was the baby of the family.
Yeah.
Always getting the sweets, getting everything, getting all the privileges of just being the last born. Then my parents passed on, and I think that was when the realities of life started really dawning onto me.
When did parents pass away?
So my dad passed on when I was 9.
Yeah.
Then my mom a year later when I was 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you the only child?
No, I'm the youngest of 4.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
How was that? The passing of parents?
It was. I'd like to think that it was traumatic, but because I was so young, I was also not quite aware of the implications or like the magnitude of the whole thing until after my mom's passing, and like a few months later, where I need to understand things like I need to change schools, go from like private schools to public schools. I have to go to school with no money to carry, with no food to carry. So I think it was only then that the reality started really dawning on me that actually life has changed.
Yeah.
Right? Things are no longer as good as they used to be.
Yeah. And then who did you now stay with now that parents passed away?
So shortly after my dad passed on, my mom started getting sick.
Yeah.
And then my aunt moved in with us to take care of her. So after my mom passed on, inevitably she just carried on taking care of us. So we just we moved in with her and our cousins. They all just moved in. Yeah.
And the transition from, because when you're young and you're with your parents, you're not really aware of what is going on. Do you get what I mean? And the transition now of having no parents and not having what you used to now being in a household with cousins and aunts. Yes, you're familiar with her, but not really because they're not mom. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
How was that?
It was hard to some extent because in as much I mean, I have a very loving aunt.
Yeah.
Right? And as much as she tried to really raise me in a way that she's never ever made me feel like I'm not your mom, but I obviously know that she's not my mom. So at that young age, I had always had those feelings that she is not my mom. She's literally not my mom.
Yeah. Okay. So something happened when I was reading your story. As I said, I purposely, so the last time was around 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
So when this idea dawned on me that I would love to feature you on my channel, it will be a great honor. I purposely did not revisit your story for a purpose, because I wanted it to also come naturally as we're having this conversation. But something happened when I think you were 14. You were at school.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
So, the year is 2009.
Yeah.
I am a 14-year-old. I'm in grade 10.
Yeah.
It is June. It's just around Youth Day. It was not on Youth Day, but it was probably like the 14th or 15th. I'm not sure the dates. Then comes my teacher who's like, we are taking you and a few other learners. It was not like for the whole school. It was like, we're taking you and a few other learners. You're going to some event to represent the school.
That's nice.
You know?
Yeah.
So I get there, we all get there. It's fun that people who are doing all these other things, people are singing, we're having fun. Then come people from this other organization.
Yeah.
And they're like, guys, do you know who we are? Do you know what we do? Like, no. Like, okay, so we do VCT, which is voluntary counseling and testing for HIV. And if you'd like to test, you can come through. It's free. Right?
Okay, wait though. Aren't you a minor?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
Yes. So because I am so young and I'm so naive, I'm just thinking, I mean, at that age, I was not yet dating, I was not yet having sex. So I'm just thinking, I'm just going to have this test for the sake of making memories.
Yeah.
For the sake of going back home.
Because this was a nice event, you were dancing away.
Yes, we were having fun, and I'm just like, I mean, and it's also going to make me seem smart when I go back home and I'm like, I had an HIV test.
Yes,
So I went in there together with my schoolmates. We all went to test.
Yeah.
And my results came back positive.
Okay, wait, just back up a bit. Did they do counseling?
No.
So they just tested and just said...
So let me take you through the procedure. I got into that room. This lady said, what's your name? What is your age? What would you do if your results came back negative? And what would you do if they came back positive? And that was it. Okay,
and then afterwards they just said...
10 minutes later or so, she came back with my results and was like, Saidy Brown, you are HIV positive. And I was just sitting there like, what
did you know what HIV was?
Yeah,
because you're in grade 10.
You kind of have a clue of what HIV is. I also think that at that age, I also knew that there are different ways of contracting HIV, but because of the nature of the virus, we always associated with promiscuity and sex. That even when she was saying that, the first thing I said was, but I'm just 14, I didn't do anything.
Sadie.
Honestly, I kept on saying, I remember just uttering those words, like, but I'm just 14, I didn't do anything, right? And she was also just there confused, because now I think also the reality of what just happened kind of, I mean, I don't like speaking for her because I don't know what was in her mind, but I'd like to believe that she was also a bit shocked by the whole thing that was just happening here.
Okay, you get out of there, ne? What happens next?
So I walk out of the room. My schoolmates are just outside, right? Because we all waiting for each other, right?
Oh my god.
And I think I was the last one to test amongst us. So when I got out, they were just excited because we are so young. We're so fascinated by this idea of having HIV test. I get outside and they're literally sharing there like, HIV negative, 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 you. And I initially said my results came back positive. And they started being tense because we are also young and we are scared, and they started being tense, and I just said, no, I'm joking. They came back negative.
Okay.
Right, and that's literally how I carried on with the rest of my day. I couldn't wait to get home because I just wanted to get home and tell my aunt. But also on my way home, I thought that what if I tell her and she asks where I got it from? And I don't even know where I got it from.
Yeah.
And it's gonna sound very bad if I say I don't even know where I got it from. So I kept it to myself for the next 6 months.
What?
Yes.
Okay. So you kept it for you didn't tell anyone for 6 months?
Yes.
What was going through your mind like during that time? Did you keep on revisiting back? That must have been a wrong test. This is surely a mistake. Like, what was going through your mind during that time?
During that time, for the next week or for the next 2 weeks, it was something that was constantly in my mind, right? And within 2 weeks or so, I decided that because I'm generally a very bubbly person, I love laughing, I was just like, this thing is really weighing down on me, and I think it can now show that something happened, but I'm not willing to say anything to anyone. So I joined the local drama club to like distract me.
Yeah.
So at least with that schedule, I was quite busy because I'd go to school. After school, it's drama rehearsals, and I'd get home at like 7 p.m. I'd do my schoolwork and sleep. So for the next 5 months or so, I was quite busy. I did not have time to be thinking about HIV or AIDS or death, right? It was only now towards this, because this happened in June, right?
Yeah.
Towards December now, because it's AIDS Awareness Month, we had to start doing these plays now around HIV.
So you were 14.
I was 14.
Okay.
So yeah, I think towards then, now when we had to start doing these plays around HIV and AIDS, it started getting annoying how my fellow actors would like portray HIV, because we were all just so young, right? So, and also the stigma was really bad at the time. It still is, but like back then it was quite intense.
Yeah.
So I would constantly be like, why are you doing it this way? Why do you think people who are living with HIV look this way, right? It got to a point where I started really being honest with myself and saying, you need to tell someone because you are unraveling, right? So I sent a teacher, like my maths teacher, an SMS, because I had planned to tell her from Monday.
Yeah.
And every day I would go check up on her, but I couldn't bring myself to telling her.
Yeah.
So I think on Thursday night,
I'm assuming it's a teacher that you were close with.
I was very close with her. Yeah, because I even had her number.
Yes.
So on Thursday night, I forced myself to send her an SMS saying, I need to talk to you tomorrow. Because I knew that if I do that, it's going to force me to have to speak, right? So on Friday, I went to her. She was like, you said you need to talk, what is wrong? And eventually I told her. And for the first time in my life, I could actually say, I'm living with HIV, and I could allow myself to cry about it and just allow myself to feel.
Even the fact that, like, I'm just astonished. Okay, I'm astonished that at 21, you can understand. I was diagnosed at 21. You know, there's a level of maturity that is expected at 21. Do you get what I mean? But to a 14-year-old in grade 10 and having to, with no proper counseling, with no follow-up, no anything, but having the ability to understand I'm living with HIV, like that's maturity beyond anyone's age.
Yeah.
And what happened after that? So you tell your teacher, what does she say? Because you can be close to someone and they still don't understand.
Yeah.
HIV is another different thing. That's what I said the other day. I'm like, again, there's two different things when you're sharing, clothes with someone, you're talking about your relationships, and you think with that person you're close.
Yeah.
And rather than them disclosing that they're living with HIV, that's a totally different thing.
Yes.
That's when you start understanding really the dynamic of the relationship.
Or the relationship.
Yeah. How did they react, the teacher?
She was quite understanding. I think she was understanding, and she also tried to make the situation less uncomfortable for me. I mean, I can imagine she was probably also shocked.
Yeah.
Right, because I was there crying. So, but what she did was she took me home.
Yeah.
And we both told my aunt. Oh my God. Yeah. And we got home, we told my aunt, and my aunt was the one who said, listen, I knew about your parents. I never could have imagined that you or your siblings could have been infected, right? So that was when we just kind of came to that conclusion that you probably were just born with it, because I was honestly just so young. And for her to even say that I knew about your parents kind of gave me some form of closure, because for the previous 6 months I genuinely did not understand
what happened,
what could have happened, you know. So for her to even say that, it really helped me in some way.
Okay, let's back up a bit. So Aunt says, okay, I knew about your parents, but did you know when the parents passed away that they were infected, or you thought, you know, it's an unfortunate death?
I mean, I saw them get sick, but HIV or AIDS or like AIDS-related illnesses are not really things that you think could be that close to home. So and I was so young, so I never could have even imagined that maybe it could be HIV or like AIDS or anything. So I saw them get sick, but I just thought they're just sick. They're sick. And they passed on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about after Aunt says, you know, parents were infected, you were probably infected also from birth. You just talked about, you know, that's when you found some kind of relief that, you know, oh, at least there's some closure.
Yeah.
But then, was that immediate? Like, I would assume, like, because, like, to some people, obviously I was not infected from birth, but having gone through a situation where I was infected by someone else, I had some not so nice thoughts about that person for quite some time.
Yes.
And that person was alive, and you know, briefly there was a moment I was like, you need to be accountable, you know, for what you did, or give me some kind of closure, or what happened. Parents have passed away. Only Aunt can give you, you know, some answers, but to some degree,
to some extent,
like, what was going through your mind? Did you have questions for mom and dad?
I did.
Like, what type of questions did you have for them?
Who came with it? And also, because I'm the youngest, I'm the only one who got infected, and that made me so resentful, because I was just like, oh, so people waited for me, and then suddenly they are now getting infected with HIV. So I was quite angry and I was quite resentful, and the fact that they were not here to actually answer for themselves made me even angrier. I was so angry at my aunt, because I just felt like, if you knew about my parents, why couldn't you just test? Why couldn't you just take us to the clinic and have us tested? I was angry at my siblings, because in as much as they were trying to be there for me and be like, we are here for you, I just felt like, are you living with HIV? Then what do you know? Right? So I was quite angry at everyone, and I just felt like I couldn't relate to anyone, and no one could relate to me. And I come from a very small, remote township in the northwest, where growing up I didn't really hear of these stories where there's like Nosy or Saidy who's living with HIV. Literally, the first time, or like the one memory that I remember quite clearly, is me reading a book a year before testing, of these 10 women who were living with HIV. And I remember looking at their stories and thinking, this is so brave, it's nice, it's quite courageous of them. And should something like this happen to me, God forbid, but should it happen, I think I'd like to deal with it this way, because it really does help other people who are reading these stories. So I didn't think anyone in my neighborhood could relate to me, and I literally thought that I was the only one there who was living with this thing. So it was quite hard for me,
because no one else is speaking or anything like that.
Yeah, so there's no form of reference. I can't even say, at least there's this lady and I can see her living quite a normal life with this thing. Yeah.
Okay, so one of my biggest things, I'm not a mother, but I am someone who's infected, and I am someone who has been affected, right, through family members. And hopefully God will bless me with children, right? And one of the biggest things when I do research, you know, come across to people that, you know, come forward with their stories is in a situation where the child is infected, or the mom is infected and would like to disclose to the child. They just don't know how to.
Yeah.
And there's an issue now is that they wait so long until 14, 15, 16, or until they get sick.
Yeah.
The child doesn't even know like this pill that they've been taking for quite some time. Disclosure is just not there, right? If you had the opportunity to go back to that 14-year-old Saidy, how would you have liked for someone to say, or disclose to you, Saidy, this is what happened?
Yeah.
When do you think it would have been appropriate for them to do so?
I think.
And how?
Yeah. I genuinely feel like I wish my mom could have tried to even have a conversation about it, because as soon as my dad passed on, she obviously knew what was happening, right? I wish she could have tried at that age to try to speak to me, just to gauge on like my knowledge of the virus and stuff, right? And then she passed on, and I really wish that my aunt could have also tried to be like, are you guys aware of like HIV and AIDS? What are your thoughts on it? I know she was not thinking that we could have been I could have been infected, but we were somehow we are affected as well. So I feel like it was a conversation that genuinely could have happened at home. It is so unfair that it had to happen at a school trip. At a school trip, come on.
And so randomly.
And what usually happens is, with all the advocacy that I do online, I'm exposed to a lot of young people who were born with HIV, and a lot of the times we all just find out so abruptly and so randomly. That is why I like saying that I genuinely wish that parents could try. I know it's not easy, but at least try to have a conversation. Check where your child's mind is at when it comes to HIV, because you'd actually find that we have way more information. Some information is not so accurate, and that's where you as a parent come in and you can say, actually, this is not how things are done. This is how things are done. HIV, in as much as it is this life-changing thing, I like saying that it's not life-limiting. And just how one gets to find out about their status and having to maneuver through life after that determines the rest of their life with HIV. I was fortunate that I met a teacher who was so supportive, and I have a family that's also supportive. Hence, I would like to believe I'm at this point where I can boldly speak to the public about my status, because I've never been made to feel like I was less than because I'm living with HIV, So I really wish that families could try to sensitize, especially when they know that there could be someone in the family who's living with HIV. Try to sensitize your children on conversations about HIV.
Make it a normal conversation.
Make it a conversation. Don't just say don't play with boys, don't play with girls.
What does that mean?
Don't have sex. Why?
And I think one of the things that I often say is that when it comes to such a topic, I think what parents are afraid of is that, I'm going to tell them that, they're living with HIV. Or I'm going to tell them, and I'm going to scare them when I do that. And I'm like, that's the thing that it's how you approach the conversation. I'm not saying to you, you're going to go to a 5-year-old and say, oh, by the way, mommy's HIV positive.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably going to look at you and like, what the hell does that even mean? You get what I mean? It's about engaging the child in different stages of their life.
Yes.
Depending on also the maturity that child has. Obviously to a 5-year-old who does not even know what HIV is, but they know that to keep them strong, there's tiny soldiers, you know, they need to take their, their pills, their tiny pills, their medication, so that, similar to how, when we were forced to eat vegetables.
Yes.
And we were asked, like, why do we need to eat vegetables? And they were like, because you can grow to be strong and healthy and be big and beautiful. It's the same thing. And obviously you develop that conversation as the child, grows. And I can assure you that once a child becomes like a teenager now, gets exposed into different things, even if there is a level of shock about this is why you had to take the pill, but if I was that person, I would actually come back. I'm like, I actually appreciate the fact that you started this conversation earlier when I was very young, and it progressed. Rather than at 15, I'm sick, or I'm at school, and like I'm HIV positive, then you have to explain.
Then you have to explain.
Like, I mean, I think that's where I'm at when it comes to
Yeah.
HIV and children and disclosure. Now listen, you just talked about having a support system for your teacher, your family, but what sort of challenges did you face? Because then outside, did you disclose to anyone else, but besides those people that were really close to you?
So it took me about 4 years to also start disclosing to my friends, and then eventually to the public.
Yeah.
Because after disclosing to my aunt, we told obviously like the rest of the family, and then from then onwards it became like an open secret where we all knew but no one was saying anything about it.
That's
right?
another thing.
Yes. So now we knew, but no one was saying anything about it. I was also not saying anything about it. And also the drama group that I mentioned earlier on closed down. So I stopped having that escape as well. And I decided to just push this entire thing to the back of my mind, and I kept on living my life like nothing was happening. So at the age of 18, 4 years later, my health started deteriorating because I was not on treatment all this time, right? My health started deteriorating. I started having these sores around my chest.
You were not taking medication?
No, I was not on medication.
What year was this?
This was in 2013. I was not on medication. And another thing that my aunt did for me after we told her with my teacher is that she took me to the local clinic for like a second opinion. So they had my records, but I never went back, right? So at 18 now, I have these sores around my chest, and I'm a bit older. I've started dating now, so these things move to my neck and then eventually to my face. And I'm trying to look pretty because
girl, you have to look pretty, okay?
Come on, I'm 18.
Hello.
So I'm just like, no, now
Yeah.
I need to go to the clinic because they need to give me an ointment that I can apply because my face can't be like this.
Yeah.
So when I got there, they're the ones who said, but ma'am, you know you came here 4 years ago because the records are there.
Yeah.
Right? And it was only then I think the reality really dawned on me that you are living with HIV, because now I had to now start getting on treatment, which was another chat, which is another thing that I've always been scared of, because minor things like at school where you'd be told that living with HIV basically means, that was how we had this conversation. Things like living with HIV means that you get diagnosed, you spend the rest of your life on these pills that are meant to make you better, but they also have side effects that will make you sick. And then you will die. So I was also scared of these pills. I was just like, I'd like to have them, but I don't want to get sick, right? So it was also another very long journey of having to finally say you really need to get on these pills, right? I remember Googling the side effects, and I don't know which.
That's the worst thing you can do.
It's the worst thing.
That's the worst.
I got on this page that was saying that my hair was going to fall off and
you're
my
gonna
teeth.
get redistribution of fat.
Oh my
I was like, I like my butt. Thank you very much. I cannot have my butt. Hello. I can't have a big stomach because I have a flat stomach. Thank you very much.
So I was so scared. I remember crying and just being like, I'm just 18. I don't want this, right? I even texted my friend and I was like, babe, rather I die because I'm not taking these pills, right? So it was quite hard, but it got to a point where now, because also I knew that I had to get on these pills, I knew that I was gonna have these conversations with my friends, because eventually they're gonna ask, what are these pills for? Are you not getting okay? Why are you having these pills? What are these, right? So I had to now start telling them about my status, and fortunately for me, they were also quite okay with it, right? They were
because at 20, it's fairly, at 18, it's fairly okay.
They were also quite fine with it, but because of the self-stigma, the internalized stigma,
that's the worst.
It's the worst, and that is the one thing that I really battled with for a long time. I was ashamed of saying I found out 4 years ago, because I didn't want them asking, why haven't you been saying anything all this time? I mean, you're meant to be the smart person, right? So why have you been so ashamed all the time? So I just lied and said I just found out now. And it was easier for them to even believe it, because it was only then that I was really allowing myself to go through the emotions and to fully actually cry and just be a mess about everything. So they really believed that I just recently found out. I told them, they were fine with it, and then I started writing my feelings down, because I was just in a very weird space where I was so angry at everyone. All those feelings of resentment started coming back. And I started writing a lot, and that was when I wrote that HIV, that open letter to HIV that I posted on Facebook as my form of disclosure. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I disclosed.
And listen, I want to go back to the dating part. Hello! Listen, okay, there's one thing disclosing to friends. There's one thing disclosing to family, right? Disclosing to a guy that you like, that you're probably gonna have sex with. Hello? That you probably really like to take this relationship forward. How has been dating for you?
Dating has been...
I have to ask. I won't be doing any justice.
No, I have been quite, I'd like to say fortunate, for lack of a better word. And I don't like using that because I don't want it seeming like we are so fortunate to be loved. It's not a favor. But it's not a favor to be loved when living with HIV. But I have really met some pretty cool people who are just like, it's fine, let's just do this. I've only experienced rejection once, right? And I was 20 going on 21, and because it was the first time it was ever happening, it broke my
What did they say?
I really like you, but I'm scared of catching HIV from you. Literally. And I was so heartbroken, right? Because it was the first time it was happening. And I have been living my life thinking, I mean, everyone I've been reaching has been okay with it anyway.
And that's the thing. And then it hits you when you least expect it.
And
then you're like, hey, but then everyone else is fine.
Then
I'm expecting everyone else to be fine.
I mean, if you say you're leaving me for this or that, I would say, okay, but HIV, really? So that really broke my heart, and it happened. And I'm not saying that I had to go through it, but I also believe that because of how my life has turned out, and with me speaking to so many people about their issues, because I have people, it's literally the main thing where people are just like, am I ever going to find love? Am I ever going to get married? So I think maybe, things happen to kind of bring you to some level of relatability with people, especially when you do the kind of work that we do, right? So now I understand things a bit better, even when people say things like, I'm scared of disclosing, I understand better. Because before then, I just used to be like, just disclose. Because for me, it was that easy. I just say, I'm living with HIV and things would be okay. So now I think I understand a bit better when people say, I'm scared.
I like that you're saying that. Because I often say to people, you can't talk about something that you have not experienced. Like, honestly, you could never relate to any extent to say, but I understand. When you have yourself having gone through that. One of the reasons that I wanted to do this segment was because what year were you born, Sid?
1995.
1995. That was before, obviously, the introduction of the PMTCT program, Prevention from Mother to Child. Obviously, I'm not making any excuse or whatever the case may be, but we just need to remember that, umama no dada did not have any other choice, if you can call it like that. You get what I mean? There was no ARVs. ARVs in South Africa were introduced early 2000. There was no PMTCT program. So a child from an HIV positive person was considered automatically going to be born HIV positive because there was no other choice. So that's why, as a result, like a lot of children during that time were born HIV positive. But here's the thing now that there's PMTCT, Prevention from Mother to Child program, so making sure that from an HIV positive, mother, you can give birth to an HIV negative child. There is also this ignorance that no children are born HIV positive now. And the other thing is that we shouldn't be talking about this because it's not an issue. You know, I remember when I first introduced it and someone said, do you talk about diabetes the same way? I'm like, okay guys, let's take it back a bit, okay? We have children that were born in the 1995, in the early 2000, and till this day, they have not been told that they're HIV positive. That's the first problem. And now they're in their teenage years, or whatever the case may be, they're dating, they're having unprotected sex life. Because look, they get pregnant in their early teens. And I'm like, it is an issue. Yeah. That's point number one. And then the second point is, yes, the number of children that have been born HIV positive, it's decreasing, but it's still there. And until there's zero infections, we still have a problem. Yes. And also, as someone that's living with HIV, I still have the responsibility of telling my child how to protect themselves. For a mother that's in a similar situation, whether it's pre-2000 when there were no PMC prevention from mother to child, or a mother that's HIV positive and wants to tell their children, what advice could you give that person? They're afraid. They don't know what to say. Like, how do you even start that conversation? Yeah. What advice could you give that person?
I genuinely think that with regards to HIV, information and knowledge is key, right? You can't have you can't have a conversation on HIV or AIDS without having the relevant information, because you need to sound like you are knowledgeable about this thing that you're talking about. Because firstly, you are going to meet people who have antagonizing views. Besides, this conversation goes beyond just telling your children, right? You need to be able to stand your ground and say, I'm living with HIV, and it's proven that if I am undetectable, I cannot infect other people, and all these other things, that the medication now is quite helpful. I can manage this thing. So even when you speak to your children, try to make sure that they are at the same headspace as you are. They understand what it means to be living with HIV. They understand what it means, why you are taking these pills, why you need to take these pills. They need to understand that in as much as we all see medication as something that is meant to cure you, these pills do not cure us, but we can better manage our lives. You see mom living a healthy, normal life, and before she had this conversation with you, you were not even aware that she was living with HIV. So why must it now change how you view her now suddenly because she just told you that she's living with HIV, you know? Just try to be as knowledgeable as possible about the virus, so that when you impart this knowledge to your children, they also are at a point where they understand. It could be shocking for them, but they need to leave the conversation a bit knowledgeable about what's happening. It needs to spark that form of saying, okay, maybe let me do my own research, you know.
So, I like what you're saying. Yeah. Because whatever headspace that you are in, and whatever mental space that you are in, and how you disclose to this person, it's how they're also going to receive it. So the fear that you have, it's the fear that you're going to impact to that person as well, to your child. So, but if you come with a sort of, I'm here to empower you, then it's the empowerment that you're going to give them. Yeah. Instead of fear. Yeah. I like that. One more thing before we close. What would you say to the 14-year-old Saidy?
Girl, we made it. We made it. We are here now. You know, because there genuinely were times when I didn't even think I was going to. I literally didn't think I was going to live long enough to see my 18th birthday. 18 for me was such a far-fetched dream. And to be 25 now, going on 26, and still being here, it just goes to show off just how the power of resilience and the power of courage and just choosing yourself relentlessly and just saying, you know what, things might not be ideal, but I'm just going to keep on choosing me. Yeah.
I don't have anything to say anymore. For the first time, I'm very, yes. I don't, this has been so fulfilling for me, and I'm so grateful. and I can only hope that it comes across to anyone that is watching this the same. Once again, thank you so much. I pray more blessings. I pray that God may just bless you with more. This is just a start already for you already at that age to accept a calling that is magnitude, because that was huge, and to accept it with such humility and strength. For me, it's really remarkable. So I pray that God blesses you with more, give you more platforms. May South Africa not be, the South African border may not be like a hindering factor for you to go beyond. I see you at the UN. I see you like everywhere, being just a story of hope. Saying that, I am 30 something, I'm 40 something, I was born with it and I'm still here. Do you get what I mean? So thank you
I'm
so
still
much.
me.
I am still me. Yes. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, I've been really excited to have Saidy on my channel for quite some time. Thank you so much for joining us. Please don't forget to subscribe, to share this video. I know there's a lot of people, you think you do not know anyone that is affected or infected, but I can assure you they are. They may not have necessarily come to you and disclose. So I ask you kindly to please share this video widely. There's someone that needs to hear it. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, cheerio.